Hi, this is Mary Kopczynski, the CEO of RegAlytics, with your update on this week's 69,671 regulatory alerts. Remember, we added all the steps of the U.S. bill, so it's almost double the volume. We also released GAWAIN this week. And what is GAWAIN, and why is all the tech at RegAlytics named after King Arthur characters? I don't know. It's another story for another time. But GAWAIN is our new proprietary onboarding tool, and it means our ability to onboard regulators is better and faster than anything on the market. And the best part, I don't need to be an engineer to do it, so I've been doing it for fun. And I'm pleased to tell you that I get to add a new statistic every week. So this is your update on this week's 69,671 alerts from 10,922 agencies. Globally, every sector, and that number, 10,922, is going to go up every single week. And of all of those 10,922 agencies, the regulator of the week is the Federal Reserve for having a set of cojones. Look, it's an independent agency, so in theory it should be able to do whatever it wants to do without executive intervention, but obviously the current administration is testing that resolve. However, this week, the Fed did something pretty normal. It published some research papers. The first one is about how tariffs gradually raised retail prices in 2025. The economists went through retail spending data and tracked exactly what happened to prices after tariffs. And the conclusion was that the tariff pass-through to consumers has been at least 30% for goods imported from China. Now, why does any of this make the Federal Reserve the regulator of the week? Well, the Trump administration has spent weeks insisting that tariffs are good, that foreign countries are paying them, and that any price increase is minor or temporary. And this is just not appearing to be the case in the economic data. The second paper looked at income mobility at the very top of the distribution chain, which is like the top 1% and the top 0.1% and even the top 0.001%. And the finding is that when you look at multi-year data, 1/3 of people in the top 1% are falling out after a single year. But the people who stay are the ones accumulating truly dynastic wealth, and the concentration at the very top is stark. This week, the Fed also terminated some enforcement actions. One notable one was Wells Fargo, where the bank has apparently met all of the conditions set back in 2018 when they got in big trouble. The other was against the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China and Standard Chartered. The timing of the China one is interesting given the broader context of U.S.-China trade tensions, but I will leave it there. Now for the topic of the week. So if the Federal Reserve is the holdout, the rest of the federal regulatory apparatus is largely doing what the current administration does want. So let's start with plain old deregulation. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency issued 2 final legal rules this week. The first rescinds the Fair Housing Home Loan Data System regulation. The OCC says it's obsolete and duplicative, but what it also was the data collection mechanism that monitored whether banks were discriminating in home lending. The second rule simplifies licensing requirements for community banks under $30 billion in assets, making it easier for them to do mergers and corporate restructurings with less paperwork. Along the same lines, the Federal Trade Commission is granting requests to reduce merger waiting periods for dozens of transactions, including semiconductor and tech deals. Lastly, the SEC did something notable enough to cause Elizabeth Warren to complain, so let me go through this one. On the exact same day that the SEC filed a complaint against Justin Sun, Tron Foundation, BitTorrent Foundation, and Rainberry for unregistered securities offerings and wash trading, the SEC also filed a proposed dismissal of all the claims. It only requires a $10 million penalty for Rainberry and none of the others. Senator Warren's statement points out that Justin Sun invested $90 million in Trump-related crypto ventures, and she's arguing that the SEC is giving a free pass to a Trump donor. The SEC argues that the security law claims are harder to go after now because of recent court filings on what counts as a security in the crypto space. So is this the SEC doing the bidding of the president for his friends, or is it a legal issue? Hey, both things can be true at the same time. Elizabeth Warren separately has demanded that SEC Chair Paul Atkins release the agency's 2025 enforcement data, which is now overdue, which I did notice. But thankfully, with the new MCP plugin to Claude, I asked for comparison, and this is what I know from RegAlytics data. SEC enforcement is down by 50% overall, but enforcement is up by 43% in one area. And you can find out what that area is by joining next week's episode of Compliance Unplugged with Mary and Laura. I included the sign up in the comments. So that's it this week for RegAlytics. We have the global supply chain of the world's regulatory alerts in one very easy to use place. If you need a solution for anything related to regulation, give us a call.